Hello everybody and welcome back to Chess Diagnostic. This is what I consider part 2 of the trading blunder for blunder BLItz chess thought process, where I'm just giving some tips on playing blitz games basically. Now of course your general chess ability and slow chess, if that improves, then you'll probably play blitz better, just because basically what you're doing is you're just speeding up the slow chess thought process. And of course, these two examples here today, this is going to be a little shorter video, are rather comical, but let's just get into it. They're also educational. So this is white to move, and it would technically be a 9-move checkmate if you want to calculate it. But the reason I'm giving this as a puzzle, and we'll go through the game, is that you'll get these kind of positions where you'll actually have a humongous advantage. You can see that white has a plus 26.3 advantage, but they're actually rather hard to play. And really, if you sit there and you try to calculate, you're most likely going to lose on time, which actually almost happened to me in this game. But basically, in positions where you kind of drive the king out, you just want to keep checking and try to drive the king further into your position. If you try to find the most accurate move in any situation, then that's kind of how you lose on time, how you get in trouble, trying to do a proper analysis. And that's why a lot of chess coaches would recommend that you play, at least 15-minute, at least 10-minute rapid games, because that does allow you more time to calculate. But let's see what happens here. All right, so let's start from the beginning, actually. I played e4. We get a Sicilian, and this is kind of like I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like an anti-dragon, where you just trade, you push, and then you get a slight advantage with f4. And now black is just counterattacking in the center. I develop a piece. I'm going to castle kingside in this variation. He's going to have to develop his knight there. I take, queen takes. And now actually we trade into an equal endgame. So let's see what happens. So I castle queenside now. And in blitz, you'll see these kind of moves a lot, where your opponent just makes a move thinking that you're going to respond, and actually it's a completely losing move. So I would recommend that you watch for attacking moves to see if you're, one, underdeveloped in the opening, which here you can see that black has not castled. I'm basically one move away from centralizing both of my rooks, and black has quite a few moves. He has 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's essentially 4 moves behind in development, and he could just castle and resume everything and he'd be fine. But the blunder here is d5. Now, you might just have the first reaction to move the bishop back, but of course this immediately gives white an advantage, and you should notice the underdevelopment. So this is a kind of a practical tactics thing in blitz, is that you want to notice the overall strategic elements very quickly, and you can really improve this actually by playing blitz. Of course, if you make a mistake, then you should go back and see where you misjudged it. But here immediately I played knight takes. All right, so pawn takes, bishop takes. And now you can see that I basically am down a piece for a ton of pawns, but because this rook has to move, and it's kind of on b7 or b8 attacking here now, but I get this check, and there's really no good move for black other than to drive his king out into the center, because if he comes here, I can check, and then with this rook check, it just looks horrible. There's really nothing that black can do to prevent a pretty quick mate from there. So he's essentially, so I only calculated out to here, bishop c5, and then we ended up with this position once I centralized the rooks. So these moves came pretty quickly, although now I started calculating and started getting into time trouble because I centralized my rooks and my bishops, but it's not so easy to mate the king. There's a lot of checks, there's a lot of different moves. So I just started with rook to d5 after somewhat of a long think. And now, technically, this would be a mate in 2, as you can see, which I missed, but check there, and then check. And now, actually, the rook's covering all these. The bishop cuts through here, and the bishop protects the rook. So it's kind of a symmetrical mate there. And it seems counterintuitive, but taking on f4 would have created more problems for me. Although it's hard to kind of take when your king's exposed against 2 rooks and 2 bishops. And so luckily for me, he made a mistake here, and then I checked. And then we ended up with this mate here after he took, and then I checkmated along the h-file. So you just kind of want to keep the game moving, but you can see how close I was to basically losing. I was less than a second away, so I had to rush right towards the end. So you really don't want to get in these long things, especially if you have a big advantage. So that's another tip I would give. If you have a big advantage, just keep moving, and of course do blunder check, but really you're not going to find the best analysis. You're not going to find a mate in 9 or a mate in 15. All right, so this next game is a game I actually played yesterday, less than yesterday, 19 hours ago against Grandmaster Agile Sloth. And this is a great example of what I was talking about in the first video, in that you're trading blunder for blunder, literally. We can see the evaluation here. I'm white. So this is actually Peter Prochaska, a famous Hungarian grandmaster. I know I had heard that name somewhere before, but he basically, he berserked me, so he had half the time, and I ended up with a huge advantage in the middle of the game, but in the beginning and the end game, it switched back to him. And then we kind of ended up in a time scramble. So let's see what happened here. So I played e4, c6. I seem to get this a lot in BLItz, and I kind of made a mistake with, I was trying to play d3. I was playing on my phone, and I played d4. So he took, and now I'm already in quite a lot of trouble, almost -2. So I was just trying to hang on here, developing my pieces. As you can see, even if you make a mistake, you just throw your pieces out. This is exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so then he takes. I probably should have took objectively, but the knight check here, it's a little hard to defend against. All right, so he goes there, brings his queen in, and now actually I get somewhat better position. At least I'm not going to be mated right away. He's driving my king out, and now I should have just played rook here, because of course I didn't have. We were playing really fast. I should have just played rook here, but now he brings his rook in, and now we literally trade blunder for blunder. I attack his queen. He could have just took me with check here, and he would have been fine. But he took my rook, and then he must have missed that the bishop moves back. Those bishop moves back are kind of hard to see. So now actually I ended up with an extra piece for some pawns, and I'm up plus 4.6. So now we're in a more normal position, and I slowly. I did another mouselet move. I was trying to play rook to c1, but I overshot. And then I go back. Now his rook gets in. All right, I could have just took that pawn, but now I kind of lost it in the time scramble, down to 6 seconds. And now I didn't want to be mated here. He goes there, but I could have just moved my king here. And that's another thing I want to say in BLItz. You really want to try to hang on to all your material. I kind of have a bad habit of just trying to trade everything. But against an experienced opponent, they're going to be able to keep moving really fast while scooping up all your material. And then you're just going to end up in basically only making king moves. So that's what I did here. And then we just did a time scramble. Although it's a theoretically lost endgame. I have a pawn. All right, and then it ended there. So a very interesting game, even against a very strong opponent. You can see that they make mistakes, and you really will trade blunder for blunder. And he's a 2600 grand master, so just keep in mind that when you are up material, you basically just want to try to play more solidly. Easier said than done, I know. So hopefully these tips have helped you, and I might make one more video, maybe not tomorrow, but in the future, on this BLItz chess thought process, because I've thought more about it, and there are a lot of tips that I've kind of learned. I've played tons of BLItz games, and actually I want to say that my main training actually it's not the best, but my main training, when I've made a lot of progress, like when I made a leap from 1600 to 1800 and then 1800 to 2000, looking back, it was basically just playing a lot of blitz, and then I kind of get tired of losing games, and so then I start looking at the blitz games, and then I kind of go slower from there. And actually, there's a really great feature here, learn from your mistakes. And I would suggest, if you don't want to buy any books, if you don't want to do anything else, you could play like 5 blitz games a day, 5 bullet games a day even, and then go through and kind of use your own games as puzzles. And of course, the main thing is not to just learn mistakes. The main thing is to make adjustments in your understanding so that you'll play better in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future. Bye-bye.